Hi, my name is Lluvia and we're recording from Los Angeles, California. I've been a photographer for the last 15 years here. I was born and raised here, so I have a long history and a lot of ties to Los Angeles. Um, I also teach, so being around other people that teach and other creatives is a big part of my life. I'm here to talk about my project, Shaping a Dialogue for Change, and it's a series of environmental portraits of a very special group of artists that have impacted me and the way I think about not only being an artist, but an educator. As an educator, and once a young person who had to be in school, um, I remember some people being very impactful in shaping the way I think about myself and my future, my past. And I think these artists do this really well. I grew up in a neighborhood that was primarily white and Asian, and it was a great community. It was safe and a great school, a lot of positive things. But I lacked a sense of connection to people like me of immigrant parents in Los Angeles. And as I grew up, I more and more reached out to find that for myself in my own life. And in that, I also got to meet people that were not only from a similar background, but also artists. And that is part of the reason why I did my project. So the artists are mostly of Latin American descent. Some use the terminology Latinx, Chicano, brown, whatever you want to label yourself. I wouldn't want to do it for them. There's a lot of different ways of choosing to identify. But one thing is for sure is that there is this spirit of generosity and investment in what they're sharing, building a sense of something bigger than themselves. And I wanted to make sure that was available for future generations and kind of upend what we consistently see presented to us through art history books or even art magazines, art conversations, people that get grants, people that get the highlight or the spotlight, that there are people of color that are doing amazing work. And since this is a community that I feel that has supported me and generously opened their arms to me and basically reflects a similar roots. I wanted to exemplify them and give them that platform. And generously, they said yes. Some of the artists that I cover are from different generations. We have artists like John Valadez and Irena Cervantes who actually work together in spaces that were meant to help elaborate and visualize labor and the struggle of labor. So that was wonderful to include and to hear their words and what it meant for them to be part of the project, but also how when they were young, they lacked role models. So there was this investment from the people that posed for me as well to see this come to life, which was really beautiful. There's also artists that are from my generation, like Mario Ibarra Jr. and his wife Carla Diaz. They have a group together called Slangwich, but I photographed them separately because they also have individual practices. But Slangwich is like a mentorship type program where they sometimes set up kind of like a pop-up workshop in communities that might not have art programs available, and they'll mentor and provide classes and artist visits to that space. So those were interesting perspectives as well. For example, when Mario Ibarra Jr. said, with one of my favorite questions from the questions that I asked was, why did you say yes? He said, because who else is doing this for us? Who's making this document, right? And I was like, yes, that's exactly the point of this project. So I was so grateful to hear him say that he also saw it in that same light. Once I decided that I was going to do the project, I took a couple of steps to helped me sort out the ideas I had, and also to build confidence in doing it and approaching people that a lot of the times I admire their practice greatly. So that was a little intimidating. I don't tend to be shy in asking people for their portrait, but it is a little harder if you admire someone. So that was something that I wanted to be very conscious of, was how I approached them and what I told them the project was about. So I checked in with friends, people that do that are part of these circles, but maybe play a different role in this world, and asked their opinion, coming up with questions. That was something that was challenging to me. So again, my friend, his name's Jorge Leal, historian, helped me with coming up with questions that would help communicate the idea of why it is that they do what they do. Because I wanted to learn why these people had become the people they had become, I asked this question. I asked, who are artists, mentors, educators, writers that have influenced you or helped form your practice or way of teaching? And I got interesting answers. Some of them had found teachers outside of school. Some of them were not really looking for them, and they showed up in their lives through just being in college. And it didn't necessarily mean they had to be part of their culture or their background, but it was people that I think it took the time. And that's something that I see across the board with these figures, is that they are very good at sharing themselves with people, and I could see how their teachers had influenced them and how now they were passing that on to others. So there was a lot happening at one time, so I decided to break it up. I sometimes scheduled the interview on a different day, maybe a week before, sometimes a month before, and then I was able to, when I went in for the photography, it was just that. And it actually sometimes helped to do it separately, because it was like almost informing how I would take their picture, because I had talked to them more in depth. I usually asked them to set aside an hour for each, if that worked for them, and that seemed to be enough time. One of the challenges, though, was that sometimes things come up and people have to cancel, or just even scheduling the initial meeting can be challenging because people are busy. And I think you just have to stay flexible, kind, and persistent, because they are doing you a favor. I hope that whoever sees this project takes a couple of things away: that there is a lot of artists to still investigate and be curious about that might not be in the spotlight, and have a curiosity for different ways of telling stories. There's also an audience that I want to reach, that I think of myself when I was in art school, in art college, and even today teaching, that when I'm looking for artists to expose my students to, that there's this reference, that there's a compilation put together that I can just grab from the bookshelf and be like, here it is, here's that book that kind of helps us to illustrate the people that are making these interesting conversations in Los Angeles. And I hope that younger people that maybe see themselves in these artists have role models that they can look to and say, like, they were able to do it, I can do it. A couple of tips on framing an environmental portrait are making sure that the environment that you're choosing says something to what you want to emphasize about this person. So for example, if I wanted to, which I did this, take a picture of my neighbor who works on old cars, I'm not going to take a picture of him inside his kitchen necessarily, unless he has like car parts in there, right? some interesting twist. But I took pictures of him outside with his car, kind of posing with it. So when people see the environment, it's like the second character, right? We have the individual, and then we have the space who are speaking just as strongly to support the full picture, and tell the story. It can be hard to, in a space that maybe you've never been to, find a shot that is going to be interesting and also an interesting place to put a person. So something that I like to do is to first look for the place where I'm going to photograph. So I'll come into, say, a studio, an artist studio, and I'll ask them to just like, oh, is it okay if I just look around? Sometimes I'll ask, is there some place that you like to sit or work, or things that you do that might help me? And then they'll say that. I don't always end up going with what they show me or tell me is like the spot they like to be in, but it's just good to know how they live in that space. And then I'll decide like if there's actual objects that I want to include, or if there's a graphic, like a design or something that's stunning that will accentuate some part of them. I do a couple of things to stay inspired. I go to movies. I talk to a lot of people that I think are doing interesting things, and it doesn't necessarily have to be photography. I'm just curious to hear people's excitement about things that they do in their life and that they love. Like some of my friends love to cook, some of them love to decorate or shop or work on cars. Whatever it is that they do, I'm interested to hear about someone's passion. And when I hear that in their voice, it keeps me um, it keeps me focused on my own passion, right? Because the conversation always comes, what are you working on? And I'll be like, that's right, I have this thing that I really love to do, and this is all about it. So it helps to also it helps to share what you are passionate about. So inspiration, I think, works back and forth with other people. For inspiration, I watch a lot of movies. I think because there's also a lot of framing and decisions that we make in photography that are similar to filmmaking. I get a lot of ideas from that, and it's relaxing and accessible. A lot of movies are just, it's a good way to pass the time, so I enjoy that. And then I also watch a lot of photographers talking about photography and look at photo books. For me, the power of photography has just, it's kind of obvious that it helps shape our ideas of history. It confirms things. It's also sometimes when certain situations have been denied historically, there's proof. There's also such interesting conversations about photography and whether they are the truth. So there's just all these ideas to explore with. I think something that's seen sometimes as just being one way of being approached. But if you investigate photography and you start learning about it, there's so many different kinds, and there's so many different things that people are trying with it. So it's a dynamic medium. I think there's a lot of possibilities to it, and every generation brings something new to it. And if you're ever in like in a questioning mode of, if is photography important, just see how much photography is confirming your tastes, your ideas about yourself, your messages that you're receiving, right? It's all around us. So I think the best thing we can do is invest in learning the language of photography. When I was in high school, I was failing, and luckily I heard about another high school that was an arts high school, and you had to not only have a great portfolio but grades, good grades to get in. So I realized quickly that I would have to get my act together to get into that school, and I did. And once I got into that school, I was getting like straight A's practically. I was, I think, one B short of straight A's. And I realized that not only is it motivating to find something that you love and be able to tolerate doing everything else that's asked of you in this world to be able to do that thing you love, but also that I could do that, right? I could meet what's expected or what's just what I should be doing, my responsibility to achieve, like graduating high school, if I had something, a passion that I could also invest in. So that's something that stayed with me. I still do a lot of jobs that I'm not necessarily crazy about in terms of like clients that I work for, the type of photography that I have to shoot. It's fine. I still love it and it's still photography. But what I can do with that I've invested in that career or those career choices is that I can on the side do my own projects. One thing that helps me, not only on set, but in life, is taking a breath. When I get nervous, sometimes I move really fast or I talk really fast, and that's helped me to take the time to consider what's happening and then be able to move forward. And that's, whether I'm making a decision about what to say next to someone in conversation or what to do next when the subject's waiting for me and I have the camera and everyone's looking like, okay, what are we doing next? It's like, take a breath. Very helpful. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to my talk about my project. I hope you enjoyed it and good luck with yours. Goodbye.